or the arc. I just was annoyed. So, but I hope our viewers aren't annoyed because we're live here in the spoiler room.
That's a tremendous plug for the Patreon show because they're like, what are they talking about?
There you go. There you go. Yes, folks. It's a new month, a new theme. And normally I don't like to reuse themes, which makes it more challenging on myself. But this year it just fits so well. So consider it a sequel to Deaduary. We did Deaduary last year, but this February, is Evil Deaduary. So last year we just had Deaduary. Now we're going to have Evil Deaduary. We may have another one next year. I don't know. We'll see if I get inspired. But yes, we're looking at films that have Evil Dead in the title, but don't belong to the Evil Dead franchise, save for one. Yes. I found them.
How did you do that? I still don't understand.
I found them. They're here. And with me, those dulcet tones is none other than Mr. Ian Simmons, who is popping his favorite beverage with us to talk movie spoilers. How you doing, Ian?
I'm doing great. I'm still convinced that you just found a bunch of titles and added Evil Dead to the title, because when I saw that list, I'm like, this isn't real. But sure enough, we're talking about Shaolin versus Evil Dead.
We're talking. Don't you love that title? I love that title. Shaolin versus Evil Dead. Yes, is tonight's film from 2004, starring one of my favorite actors in one of my all-time favorite martial arts films. It's on my shelf over here. Return to the 36th Chamber. Yes, Mr. Gordon Liu, aka Chia-Hui Liu. I hope I pronounced it right. Anyway, he's in here playing a Shaolin monk. And Ian, did you want to give the synopsis of Shaolin versus Evil Dead?
I'll try.
Go for it. You can do it.
There's a Shaolin monk, and he's got two youngsters with him. One, they keep calling themselves like father and
brother,
and there's uncle and stuff. I don't think they're related. I feel like it's more like a student master type of situation. But there's like a little kid who's probably 12, another guy who's probably in his 20s, and then this older gentleman. And they're, I think, roaming around the countryside with a horde of jumping zombies that they're trying to restore to their proper resting place. And they stumble across the evil uncle character, who's the Black Wizard, and his companion. And there's some like magic squabbles, and eventually the King Zombie or the Lord of the Dead or something, or maybe that's just a phantasm thing, is resurrected, and there's all sorts of fighting and problems. There's also a child who is born from an ill-digested spirit egg.
Yes. I love this movie.
At the very end of this movie, and we'll talk about, I don't want to spoil it now, but there's a gateway to a continuing story that I almost feel like I have to watch before I can properly talk about. I'm going to do my best, because this movie is so random and so crazy and so awesome that I'm going to have trouble keeping everything straight. So I'm glad I'm talking about it with you.
Well, I watched... this is the first time I've watched this film. I actually stumbled upon it just randomly looking for something to watch one day, and I stumbled upon it. And I'm like, wait, what's this? And I watched it. And I'm like, oh my god, it's got Gordon Liu in it. It's got the really cool zombies. It's got everything, folks. This thing has romance, comedy. It has drama. It has special effects. It's got martial arts fighting. It's got history, mythology. There is so much that they touch on throughout.
You forgot the dubbing.
The dubbing. Unfortunately,
it has to be seen to be believed.
The dubbing. Yeah, unfortunately, I could not find, and I don't know if Arrow or if this was real. I tried to look for a release and I couldn't even find it. Anything on streaming just has the dubbed version, and maybe that's the only version that they released, at least in the West, unfortunately, because I always want the actual voice acting and possibly better translation than what you get in the dubbing, because as we all know, with Return to the 36th Chamber, the dubbing can really be off. Like whoever they pulled into the DVD room saying, "Hey, we need someone to dub here. Just read this at these parts." And then left the guy alone in the room with the recording for me.
I disagree. I think 70% of this movie's charm is in the voice acting.
There is that. There is charm in it. Absolutely. I won't deny there is charm in the voice acting. Whether or not that's what the characters are actually saying, no. But the voice actors, this actually has some pretty decent voice acting dubbing in it. It's not just some guy reading off of a paper. They are trying to do some voice acting, which was nice because it goes along with the rest of this just insane film. It's wonderful, this opening scene where we get the different zombies than you're used to. But if you watch other Asian horror films in that, this type of the jumping zombie in that is a type of zombie or a type of vampire, actually. I believe that shows up in the mythology. So, and I may be completely wrong, if I remember. I was doing some digging though, because I'm like, wow, that's interesting, because I've seen that type of character in a number of different films. I'm like, oh no, that is a proper that is a being that existed in mythology. And I'm like, oh, that's cool. But I love where this film goes, because they're walking with these zombies and they run across a little person who is an undead person. there's the buffet room, which is looks normal cafe on the outside, but
it's, if they ever do a remake or a sequel to They Live, probably a remake, because I don't know how you sequelize that movie.
Yeah.
When the master, he knows something's wrong in this restaurant that they go to, but his companions are like, they're just hungry. They just want to sit down and devour their noodles. He conjures, like, he blows some dust and he does the crazy waving thing with his hands, but then he like pulls out, almost like a director would, like this mystic
vision,
letterbox, right? And then
yeah.
he can see like what's actually going on. I was amazed by that. Like it's so cool. And then eventually, gradually, it's 2004 special effects, right? So it's not the greatest, but it still looks really neat, where you can see almost like a magic window thing of like the environment changing from the illusion to the truth, and everything kind of decays. It's so cool. And like the whole first 20 minutes of this movie is shot, at night. It reminds me of, I'll have this written down somewhere, but there's a very specific look that I associate with this. I'll have to. Oh, it looked like the climax of the Monster Squad.
Oh,
that
yeah.
kind of like bluish, bathed in moonlight kind of thing. That's like the first 20 minutes. In fact, I was thinking, wow, it'd be cool if this whole thing took place like at night, like in one night. But no, we get some daytime stuff, and that's not a knock. I was just mildly disappointed. I got over it quickly.
No, the night stuff looks really good. The night shooting in that, the way they light it, you buy into the fact that it's night, even though it's really brightly lit. You can tell everything's going on. So you're right. Monster Squad is definitely relate to it. But in general, when this film opens, until you get to the special effects part, up until that point, you can't quite tell that this is a martial arts supernatural film in 2004. It feels, the way the sets are and just the look and everything, it feels like a lot of the earlier martial arts films we're used to seeing on either syndicated TV channels back in the day. Yeah, we're old. I'm old anyway. Independent channels, late night had Kung Fu Theater, to which they had a wonderful collection of martial arts film they played. But it looked, the setting and costuming and everything looks just like that. So it's hard to tell that this was 2004 until he does the magic visor thing to look at the people to see what's truly going on. And then you're like, oh, okay, this is more modern.
Well, before we step over it, pun intended. The opening shot of this movie relates, I mean, possibly, probably unintentionally, to Sam Raimi's Evil Dead 2, because it's this close-up of a puddle that looks like it was lifted from the famous puddle scene where Bruce Campbell falls into the puddle that ends up being like, 7 feet deep or whatever. But it's like a close-up shot of that holds for like, several seconds. I'm like, wow, this is even if it's even lit like it. I mean, it looked like someone like they lifted it. Is it Douglas Kung is the director. It looked like he lifted that right from Raimi.
And he might have, I don't know. He may have been influenced by it, because we do know how influential Evil Dead was. So, but as far as, the whole setup to this film, you're just like, it captures you, and you're right. It just pulls you in. And they do so well in setting up the world early and how magic works and everything in here, that you buy into it before you get into the first major action sequence where they're fighting the undead in this cafe. By that time you're already bought into this world.
Yeah, and I didn't watch the trailer. I didn't, I think I may have seen just the image on Tubi or YouTube. I think I watched it on YouTube, so I didn't have to watch the ads. But I didn't expect it to be a comedy, really. I mean, it's got a goofy title, but then I was like, well, maybe it's just a bad translation of something. But no, it's a straight up, comedy horror martial arts film. And within the first 5 minutes, I was totally hooked. And based on what we see over the end credits, I feel like the sequel is going to make this thing look like a straight drama, because it looks just completely freaking nuts.
The sequel, I'll give you a little bit of a taste. I don't want to spoil too much for you, but it's more of a prequel than a sequel. So, so that is always interesting how they take that approach, with it. And it's kind of like this one too. If you read the synopsis of this film, folks, don't take it as that's what this film is about, because spoilers, that's the last 10 minutes of this movie, really. The whole thing about Mr. Magma and raising the dead and doing it, that's like the last 10 minutes of this movie. The rest of it is this conflict we have between Pac, played by Gordon Liu, who is the leader of his clan and a Shaolin priest, and as we mentioned, the Black Wizard. They refer to him as many names, but the bad guy, basically played by Su Wong Fan, who was wonderful in this as well as a bad guy. He so looked the part too. That's what I love about this movie, is that it's almost like a comic book film of sorts, because just the way people are the costuming in that, who these people are and what they're about, like, right away.
Oh yeah, I got the feeling, and this is not a knock on the movie, but we don't get a backstory or context. I mean, from what you're saying, maybe we get that in the sequel, but we're dropped right into this world, and the characters kind of explain some stuff to each other. But I felt like this was episode 90 in a long running TV series that I would love to watch the rest of. I got kind of a I got kind of a G.I. Joe vibe from what you're, because in G.I. Joe, the old cartoons, like, you look at a character, you know exactly his specialty. Okay, that guy is good with animals. That guy's the cook. That's the head bad guy, whatever. That guy's got a parrot on his shoulder. I don't know. But yeah, it's so simple. Yeah, there's so much fun. This is a fun movie.
It is so much fun. And the fight sequences are still well choreographed and so entertaining to watch. There's wire work in here. The kid gets in on it. It's not like he's just there, camera on the side or whatever. The kid gets roughed up and he's in it. They pull out these magic spirit eggs to where they're fighting these undead in this cafe.
They're Pokemon. Just say
it. It's similar to Pokemon in that respect. Yes, the concept is that they're walking around with these eggs, and they when they hit them with these eggs, they trap their souls in the eggs. And you're like, well, why are you doing that? Well, they want to take the eggs and properly bury them. because our monk Pak is a good guy, okay, and he wants to show respect to these folks, even though they're undead and trying to kill them and eat them or whatnot. He's like, they're just tortured spirits that need to go back peacefully. Whereas his rival, like, tortures the spirits. He like beats the living hell out of these folks. And then when he traps the spirits, he traps them in black eggs and then uses their power for his own black magic. And that's all established, but that's what I love. It's through visuals. You don't really get a huge amount of exposition. Like you said, you get a mention of, when they're done dispatching, because our heroes get help from the anti-heroes, the black wizard and his companion Moon, when they come in and help. We don't get a huge lot of dialogue, but you get enough to understand, okay, this is a situation. These guys do it peacefully with spirits. These guys don't give a damn.
Well, I mean, and that's the the neat thing about it is there's constant. It's in this respect reminds me of a video game. You're not unless you're old farts like us, and you had like back in the day those giant manuals you could buy that give all the maps and secrets and stuff away. But mostly you're just dropped into this game, and you got to find stuff, pick it up, see what it does, and oh, this is a weapon or this is a power up or whatever. In this, there's so much to this magic system. There's the good eggs that collect the spirits, and you have to bury them. Then, as you mentioned, the black eggs. There's also the voodoo paper, which kind of keeps the zombies in check. There's all of this stuff going on that we're constantly learning about throughout the movie, but I don't think there's any exposition dump. It's like they discover it or we discover that the characters know about something, and then we have to see the effects of it. Like, oh, that's really neat. I wonder what would happen if, and then a lot of times we find out, specifically with the voodoo paper at the end. Like, oh wow, that's great.
I love the voodoo paper, and I've always liked that concept of the paper spells, and by using them, they applying them to things or whatnot. I think that's such a cool idea, versus just saying a spell or whatnot, or and then along with the hand gestures and just like the whole magic system is fascinating to watch, and you can piece together what these things do without someone explaining to it, because they show you what they do. The way it's shot, especially the action sequences, there's a number of action set pieces in this film, and all of them, it's why I love, and I will stand by this, and it's not every Western director, but the good majority of the Western directors do not know how to shoot action. Some of them are better now than they were, but still, compared to here, where we're seeing wide and medium shots of the fight action, and you can see everything going on, and it's insane what our performers are doing, and it's them. It's not like stunt people, it's them.
I mean, there's some stuff that I think I first saw, and I'm not as versed in my kung fu movies as certain people, and certainly you, but I think in Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon was the first time I saw I don't know how to quite describe it, but it's like almost like a horizontal spinning through the air.
Oh yeah.
Right. And I think we see one or two of those in this movie.
Yeah,
and it's a marvel. Like, I'm looking for wires. I'm like, I still don't know how the hell they achieved that move, and if that's achieved through camera work or if it's just them capturing something that someone can actually do. Regardless, the effect is just, it's incredible, because that somehow you're watching something real. It's not just something that had to be, and this is not to suggest that 3D artistry is not art, not very complicated, but it's more impressive when you can see something being done in camera or capturing something in real life.
Yeah, exactly. And everybody who's involved in the film, of our main actors, either the supporting characters or your main characters, have some martial arts either training talent or have been run through something too, because they all get a chance to get some licks in and take licks as well, take some hits and some falls. The kid goes through a staircase. The kid goes through a lot, and there's some humor worked into the fighting, which is great, because the kid hides under a stairway because he got all the bigger zombies out, and he runs across the zombie kid, and he knocks this kid through stairway, and the kid gets smashed into the back of the restaurant.
The duo of we'll call them the brothers,
Yeah, the brothers.
there's an age difference there, but I just love their comedy because it's so weird. At one point, the older brother is trying to teach the younger brother the best way to pee, like against a wall.
Yeah,
And
with
he
your
says,
leg up.
Yeah, you got to do it like with your leg up, like a dog. And the one kid said, why don't you just use your hand to prop yourself up? The other guy says, if you use your hand, what would you hold your dick with, idiot? And then later, they're talking about how there was some move or something you had to do it, but you needed to be a virgin. And then the older brother says, hey, I'm a virgin too. Look, we're both the same size. Oh, no.
Yeah, that's where I'm like, okay, is that something lost in translation by the dubbing, or
God, I hope not.
Well, no, they why he needed the virgin pee for a spell. And this is what I love. Right. They needed it for a spell, and so he told the kid to pee, and then Pac takes the spell paper on a dagger and sticks it in the pee to break the spell, and yeah, that's yeah, it's
they need to make a movie about who wrote these freaking spells.
And then and then where things, in case they hadn't gotten any more weird, during the initial fight, the kid ends up trapping a spirit, but one of the zombie guys shoves the spirit egg into him. So the running gag through a good chunk of the film is he's got this spirit egg in him, which he eventually becomes possessed, which actually is just, well, I love this whole film, but the one of the great scenes is the kid gets up and he just starts slamming himself against the stone pillar, and brother comes up and going, what the hell are you doing? And then you get the demon talking to, well, the spirit talking to him, and we find out he's possessed. And, and they're just such great moments with that. Then they decide to come up with this grand idea of eating lots of sticky rice because.
Yeah, he says, sticky rice can cure a restless spirit. Here, eat 49 of these sticky rice dumplings.
And the kid's like, I can't eat anymore. And that's where the brother runs across Moon, because of course we have the classic story of the apprentice, or whatever, the students finding romance with each other while their mentors are clashing with each other. That classic, conflict story that we have in here, with some actually really cool. I will say 90% of the CGI that they do use in here looks pretty freaking cool. When after they meet each other, he can't speak to Moon, and we get this wonderful, like, slapstick old school comedy routine where he's trying to save her. But he makes this origami bird that he sends to her, and it looks awesome.
I think it was supposed to. I thought he referred to it as a dragon.
Oh yeah, it could have been a dragon.
It's the same effect, but yeah, it's a really, especially for 2004. I mean, it totally works within this movie. It's so cool.
Yeah, because he tried to write. He can't talk to her, so he tried to write her a note, but the note got ripped in half when he was trying to keep her from getting rice dumped on her from this Rube Goldberg type of slapstick comedy scene. And so he sends the other half via flying paper dragon, and it looks awesome. So then she's like, "Oh," but then bad guy comes in and is going, "What the hell's going on in here?" And she's like, "Oh, nothing." So she sets fire to it with her magic. Again, this is what I love. Is this just magic is just here, folks. It exists. These people use it with ease. The main characters who are magic users, but they don't make a huge deal. It's just like, Harry Potter type stuff to where, that's just the way it is. It's natural to them. But she makes it into a butterfly, and the butterfly looks awesome for an animation. You're like, I watch it, I'm like, holy crap, that looked really good.
Yeah. I had a note about that. Yeah, I also wrote down, I noted it's kind of an electric looking butterfly. Do you know, I don't want to get off topic here, but do you know, in addition to the second movie, did they ever do more of these, or was there ever a series? Because I swear this feels like it was like a part of a larger piece.
I'm not sure. The way the way the synopsis reads, it's almost like you're supposed to know these characters already. I fully admit, I wish I knew more about this, but I don't. But as far as I know, this is where the film starts up, but it may be a continuation from a different series, not called Evil Dead, but Shaolin versus Evil Dead. I'm unfortunately not 100% sure on that. I know the way it's written, though. It's almost like the plot thickens as our heroes Pak and Hawk discover a horrible plan by the evil genius Dr. Magma, as he makes the evil dead come to life and fight Shaolin monks and have mastered the art of fighting. I don't know exactly who wrote the synopsis, but they must have worked for Netflix, because that right there is a Netflix write-up.
Amazon is no better. I was watching John Carpenter's Christine earlier this evening, in between getting home from Oscars talk and my nap. I watched the first hour of it. The synopsis is correct. The title is completely wrong. It's like, Goodbye to the Navy. It's like, Goodbye to the Navy, 1942. An evil car takes control of a young teenage boy. What?
that is completely a Netflix summary right there, folks. Back when Netflix was doing DVDs, we got summaries like that, where you'd read the synopsis on the disc envelope, and then you'd play the movie, and you're like, that is nothing like the envelope said.
If Netflix was smart, and they kind of are, they would do that, like, because people love those things. They would like make every 25th synopsis on purpose like terrible.
But no, as far as I could tell, everything that I found on it, and this is the start of it. So you just start up with already knowing these characters, which is not unusual. I mean, you get that in some, with some animes, to where you start off with just the characters, you're presented with them, and you might not know a lot about them, and it feels like, did I miss something in the beginning? Because it seems like it's involved in the middle. And then eventually, like flashbacks, those have episodes. You get flashbacks to where you catch up. And you do have this kind of a little spoiler, but like I mentioned to you before, Ian, that the sequel that they planned, which you do get a hint for during the credits of this one, is more of a prequel that gives you more of the story with these individuals. Not so much, though, where we pick up in this film. It's not like, oh, this ends and then that's where. No, they don't do that. But you get some more backstory, which is interesting. But
well, I'm interested to know. I mean, they had to have filmed these back to back or something.
Right. Oh yeah.
But the way the credits play out, I feel like if I were to have gone to see Shaolin versus Evil Dead in the theater back in 2004, that I would have seen those closing credits, that would have killed me. Because that's kind of the thing where I'm watching, like, no, I have to see this now. There's like rocket ships and underwater fighting and God knows what else. But it's like the scale is just, in fact, that's why I think it's probably it's almost like Pearl and X. Like, you could watch them in any order, but you really want to watch them in the order they were released, because I feel like going from whatever is going on in the sequel to watching Shaolin versus Evil Dead, just in terms of scale, it might be kind of a letdown, not having seen the sequel, of course.
Yeah. Kind of, yeah. If you went the other way, I could definitely see that, because the second one ramps things up from this one for sure, as far as scope. But as far as this one goes, it's interesting because we even get like a pardon the reference, a Dragonheart type of moment in here, because our bad guy, and I put it in quotes. He's just, he's just a misdirected guy currently. He's so jealous of the other guy because of their history. He literally takes this one little person zombie who had befriended the kid. He traps him in an egg, then uses that egg to create a evil spirit that he then lets loose on a village, only to show up and go, "I'll save you."
Mm-hmm. It's what Peck accused the Ghostbusters of doing in 1984, like setting up the ghosts to trap them.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is kind of a sad little display, when he's vanquished and everything, because even though he was an evil, like he looked all messed up because he had like half of his face was chewed off and everything. You're like, yeah, he's not so bad, but yeah, it was a great grift on the village. Like he made people like give him their possessions or something like that in exchange for protection. And
yeah, and then they said, well, to protect the evil, he goes, well, to protect the evil, I will need your prized possessions, because the evil will come for them unless you give them to me, which is a great drift. It's like, well,
it's Jerry Falwell. Yeah.
Well, you've got that expensive sword over there, but if you give that to me, the evil guys won't come into you because they'll be seeking me out because I have it instead of you. And then he makes the Virgin Army, which, again, no real explanation outside of after he gets paid all of this money, he says, "Oh, I'm going to train your kids to defend the village because I can't be here forever."
You glossed over it. You said the polite way of saying what he said to the villagers.
Yes.
This is some real Epstein Island shit. He says, "I'm going to teach your virgin boys my magic."
Yeah. I was trying not to put it that way, but yes,
I'll go there.
You're just like, okay. And so then that's when he does the spell with the Virgin Army. And that's what it was. I think that's what he needed the Virgin P for. Was it for the paper army they ended up creating? Because what ends up happening is our heroes come across the Black Wizard as he's grifting these parents, and what they don't realize is that he uses a spell to create, quote unquote, the Virgin Army, which is basically taking these kids who are still pure and making them martial arts experts through this spell. And there's a wonderful choreography scene with a group of young performers who they scared me. I'm like, gee, they could kick my ass, right? So what we end up getting though is of course the Black Wizard's upset. He's like, oh hey, because our heroes broke the spell. So we end up getting this weird battle between the Virgin Army and paper, because because he's upset that our heroes told the parents that he's using a spell, and he's like, oh yeah, well, I'll show the parents by really using a spell and making them like possessed kids. And they're like, okay. So then he goes to the kid, goes, draw me something. The good guy, Pac, goes, draw me something that'll be really, formidable for our foe. And he ends up drawing a Shaolin monk.
Yeah, it was almost like was it Ong from Avatar: The Last Airbender?
Yeah,
or Caillou,
yeah. Or a cross between them or something. But yeah, it's like it's funny because Pac does the spell and all the characters pop up and they're paper, and then they do this cool transformation of where they go from paper characters, these fully full-sized paper characters, to real people to fight.
Yeah, it's almost like watching popcorn pop, but it's like paper popping into a real person. It's a really cool effect.
It's a great effect. And so that happens. And so so the kids start fighting each other. And along with that, then the Black Wizard does a magic move to help inspire Moon to fight, and of course the other student then has to fight, so they have to fight while the kids are fighting, and there's a lot of fighting going on.
Everybody's kung fu fighting.
Everybody's kung fu fighting, but the Shaolin but they end up breaking the spell on the kids as they're fighting them. So when they get again, no explanation, but you gather fairly quickly that whoever gets knocked down to the ground on their back loses. So their spell is like broken. So the Virgin Army, the kids lose the spell is broken if they get defeated.
So you're saying that once they wind up on their backs, they're no longer virgins.
Wow. Just I'd like to say that the comments of Ian do not reflect the company of Special Mark Productions or the Spoiler Room podcast in general. They are his own. Anyway,
not even my own. I don't know what I'm talking about.
You don't know it, but no, it's another wonderful action sequence with young actors, performers who have talent, and it's endearing. This film is endearing in so many ways. It's so fun to watch. It's zany, but as zany as it is, things kind of make sense, at least as far as their own little context, of situations. The kid end up giving birth to a kid because he's possessed by the spirit in his stomach.
Right. And it's, the way that that's handled is, the kid is in the countryside and his stomach just starts growing, gets like crazy distended, and he can hear voices coming out of it. He runs up to this toilet on the hillside, and we see the whole outhouse explode. And then we see this also reminded me of Ghostbusters, the reveal of the little egg boy. He's like covered in like shaving cream. I mean, like just like this, not like, like the giant foam chunks of marshmallow at the end of Ghostbusters when they're on the building. That's how this kid is kind of revealed. And then he's like, Mama, following him around. He's like, I'm not your papa, or not your mama, I'm your papa.
Papa, yeah.
But we do get, and I was so happy to talk to you about this. At one point, the little egg boy falls down a quarry side of a quarry, and we get a wonderful shitty dummy.
Yeah, because the kid, he's a kid. He's like 12 years old. He doesn't want to deal with a kid, so he just leaves egg kid in the woods. He's like, screw you, I don't want you, right? And as he walks away, suddenly parental instincts kick in, and he starts wondering what would happen to this kid if left alone. And yeah, one of them is the kid walks off this ledge, and it's such a shitty dummy. The arm like falls off the mannequin halfway down the mountain. The arm falls off, and you're just like,
hey, that experiment they do sometimes in schools to teach kids about being parents, and they have them carry around an egg? Forget all that. Just show them Shaolin versus Evil Dead.
But what's funny is the fact that it's a 12-year-old imagining it. So for some reason, somehow the mannequin arm falling off, you're like, okay, I mean, it's humorous, but it's beautiful. It's a beautiful segment of many beautiful segments. Because we learn later on the real reason why the Black Wizard picked this particular group, this particular village, is because after he vanquishes the bad guys and they're all praising him or whatever, they take him to their sacred temple where they have the memory plaques and everything for those who have passed. And then, of course, the foreshadowing, oh, no, that's the private room. You can't go in there.
The only thing missing was a beaded curtain.
A beaded curtain. That's only for select people to go back there.
Must be 18.
Must be 18 or older.
Must be 18th century and older. No.
So, of course, our bad guy goes in there, and that's where part of that synopsis is true, to where we learn he's there to get a stone of some kind. There's this stone, and he removes the stone, and of course you've got a crypt, and it should be telling right away because this guy's crypt is badass, but he's off the floor. so that he's not touching the casket is hovered in air, which had meaning of he doesn't touch the ground or the sky or water or anything. So it's a pretty bad individual in this casket, and he disturbs it because he wants the stone, because he wants to prove himself. And of course, he wakes up the bad guy, who looked really cool.
It reminded me of the Hammer film, The Legend of the Seven Golden Vampires, the co-production of like Hammer and
right,
was it Shaw Brothers?
Shaw Brothers, yeah.
Yeah, that movie kind of opened with something similar to the climactic fight in this, which is really just the beginning of its own whole movie. Yeah.
Yeah, because so you get like these chapters, because you get like the chapter at the beginning where we're introduced to our characters fighting undead in a cafe, and then you get the showing of the Black Wizard. Then you get the middle part with the love the love story. You get a third chapter with the Black Wizard, rolling one over on this town village and mistreating spirits. And then you get the climax of this film, which is like 15 minutes of this badass guy who's been resurrected fighting everybody. Just about.
Yeah, I mean, you can't possibly predict where this thing is going to go, like from the beginning all the way to the end. Even when you start to kind of get a feel of what is happening and how the story works, you still can't guess. Like, there's no way you can predict the beginning of this. There's one of the characters is going to be a child hatched from the egg of another, the egg that was in a stomach of another child, and that egg boy would have like this great heroic moment of sacrifice at the end of the movie. That was,
right.
Weird, but also incredibly touching.
It was. And the whole fight when you have our bad wizard trying to fight our big baddie, and he's kind of doing okay. Moon gets in there. She gets to be a badass because her fighting skills too. She's, I think she could probably take on her master. She's definitely in her own right some good skills there.
I think half her technique is just hypnotizing her enemies with that amazing navel. Like, she's got this, like, her outfit like seems framed for just like, look into my eye, and then I'm gonna like cut your head off with my fists. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, her outfit is kind of a bit of a standard in this, but she gets to be badass, so she backs it up, with some serious skills as well in this fight. And then our good guys show up and they assist because they're good guys. They're like, "Oh, you're a bad, you're an ass. You woke him up, but we'll still fight the bad guy with you." And we get your wonderful. We get this wonderful moment. It's again another moment where they show you what's going on and you buy into it, though they don't explain anything. When he's fighting the big bad guy, Pac he pulls out a sword. You're like, well, what good is that going to do? But then he pulls out the paper and he throws it on the sword, and then he's fighting, and that's all you need. You're like, oh, okay, that's going to help him fight with the sword. You know what I mean? It's like you don't need an explanation or foreshadowing of, well, this zombie paper does this or whatnot. You don't need to know any of that.
Yeah.
Just like you don't need to know that the Black Wizard uses his own blood for some blood magic that comes back and bites him on the ass, not literally but figuratively.
Yeah, it's I don't know what more to say about this movie, really. I mean, we've kind of covered the whole thing, but it's just, I can't recommend it enough, especially because you can watch it for free on like Tubi, or like I said, there's a version on YouTube. I'm with you though. I would love to see if there's some kind of a home video release, with extras and all that kind of stuff, just because I'm in a weird position, Mark. I know this stuff is on demand at my fingertips. I just like knowing that I can pull something down from a shelf too,
Well, but
I know you have no idea what I'm talking about.
I no clue what you talk about with physical media at all. I have very few items of physical. Anyway, no, you're right. It's a wonderful film. It's I wish it'd get a proper release in the West. Maybe there is one out there. I didn't get a chance to dig too deeply, but I would love that because there's so much into this. If anything, you could look at this almost as how we've talked about films over the past few years that have been released that are nostalgia films of sorts, that are, films that harken back to earlier movies that influenced the filmmakers. This feels like one of those because outside of the special effects, this is handled like some older school kung fu films, and I'm all for it. I mean, the look and everything about it just is. It's got a wonderful visual aesthetic. The story, you know, isn't that complicated, but at the same time, there's a lot going on.
Well, it reminds me of it was around the same era, but Stephen
Mhm.
Chow made Shaolin Soccer a couple years
Yes.
before this,
Mhm.
and then I think in 2005 he made Kung Fu Hustle.
Oh,
And like
oh,
all three of these movies belong in that same, like you could have an awesome drive-in movie night with
that
all three of
would
those movies. And what I love is what you're saying, Mark, about people who are wanting to make kind of homages to the movies they grew up
mhm,
on. The problem with a lot of modern sensibility and wanting to go back and like, I'm going to use the phrase again, Stranger Things everything up, is they
right.
want it to be either ironic or cheesy or have some kind of a comment or
Mhm.
just like, hey, look what we can do with $7 million of production. We can recreate 1982. Wow. What I loved about this film and the films of its ilk that I just mentioned is they just wanted to make their own version of it that feels like you could have found it, stumbling into a midnight theater back in 1981.
Yes. Yeah, outside of the effects, I could see this at any a at any time. It's wonderful. It's done in that spirit. The second one, yeah, I will highly recommend the second one because it ramps things up and it's just as crazy, but a little bit more straightforward because it's more of a prequel. But it also takes kind of this abrupt turn about an hour in. Just like this film in the last like 15 minutes, it just takes this abrupt turn to where it went from this rivalry between the brothers for the clan to, oh no, we got to take down the big baddie. It's like, wait, what? Okay, I guess we have a threat now and we have to fight him.
Well, I mean, that's the thing is it feels abrupt when you're watching it, but if you look at where the story is headed, it was always going there. It's
Mhm.
just like the characters, we are discovering that there was a plot already in motion that we stumbled across, and now we have to deal with it. Like the Black Wizard, I mean, I don't know that he went to that village because he knew what he was going to find there. It's just that when he found, he was going there to essentially do a grift, and when he was doing
Right,
a grift, he found an opportunity for a greater,
right.
master plan, and he enacted it, and Pack and his gang, they're kind of on his tail. So yeah, again, this is like an arc for a TV show.
It is,
I'm
it is.
angry that I can't watch that TV show.
I would love to see a series of shows, a limited series with these characters in this world because it's entertaining. It's fun. We'll wrap it up here. I mean, it's not a deep film, but it's still yeah. This is the type of stuff that I grew up with. It took me back to watching late night kung fu films on Channel 18 in Milwaukee because they had kung fu theater. Because Saturday nights was Elvira, so Friday nights though 11 o'clock, I think it was, Kung Fu Theater, they played. And that's where I caught Return to the 36th Chamber, which had Gordon Lowe in it, who has done so many wonderful films. Uh,
He was also, wasn't he the leader of the Crazy 88s and Tarantino's
yeah.
Kill
Hmm.
Bill? Yeah, I
Yep.
think I've got his action figure up there somewhere.
Yeah,
Um,
that was one of the big things because he was such an iconic actor in martial arts films. Tarantino got him for the Crazy 88s. So,
I will say,
um,
as a final recommendation, if there's anyone out there who hasn't seen this movie yet and who is disappointed by Star Wars: The Last Jedi, I know Mark and I are defenders of that movie, but we know it has its detractors, and I understand why. I don't necessarily disagree with the criticisms, but one of them is the relationship between Kylo Ren and Luke Skywalker. That is sort of the relationship between Pack and the Black Wizard. The
yeah.
sort of the uh, upstart, impetuous young apprentice magician and the older, wiser teacher
Mm,
who lost his one of his prized students and is really beaten up about it, and they kind of cross paths again. I feel like if Rian Johnson had taken, I'm not saying I have a problem with what he did in the film, but I'm saying if he had studied this movie and kind of gone more in that direction, maybe not so comedically, but just in terms of how the stories kind of break apart and then intersect again, I think it would have been a lot cleaner and maybe more pleasing.
More pleasing to folks. It might have been. Who knows? That's a whole other discussion of what they were trying to do and what it ended up being. So.
Right, but I was getting serious, like Kylo Ren vibes, even down to the point where the Black Wizard was like crazy emo, kind of the same way that Adam Driver was.
Yeah, he had the hair and everything. He had that look and everything, and kind of sweaty, and
he had the aura of Adam Driver with the visual look almost of dark Tobey Maguire from Spider-Man 3. Complete with the hair swoosh, and I swear the mascara a little bit.
The hair swoosh and some of the makeup on him. Yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right. That was evil. That was Dark Spider-Man as well. But me too. I recommend it, folks. Search it. It's out there. I hope I can find it on disc or something, because I would totally buy it, purchase it, because it is fun. It is what I look for the film like this, and it's good. It's entertaining, and it breezes along. I mean, this film moves. For what's going on in here, what they cover as far as story and characters and everything, it moves. It moves for its runtime. You are engrossed in it, and when it ends abruptly, very abruptly. Too abruptly, but
it does end too abruptly. But it's funny because, like, all the characters, I think, if I remember correctly, they get up and they run because they're like, oh, we got to get to this thing. And it's almost as if they run directly into the end credits, which is the trailer for the next movie. I'm like, yes, I want to follow you. Please take me with you.
Almost. And I love it too, because none of the characters we followed throughout the entire film are the ones, spoiler, that dispatch the bad guy. It's a character out of the blue that you're like, okay. You're like, damn. You're like, okay, wow, that happened.
And it reminded me almost of the end of Nightmare on Elm Street 3, with the way they vanquish Freddy towards the end.
Yes. Yeah. So there you have it, folks. Shaolin versus the Evil Dead. No, it doesn't have anything to do with the Evil Dead, like the majority of the other films we will cover this month. But it does have undead folks who are evil. So there you go.
Could one of the further adventures involve Ash Williams, like, landing in this time with Pac and I would love that.
Oh, that would be like I'd be just like with my movie pass going, I've just spent all my credits in one day rewatching this film like 80 times. I got movie pass. That's another story. But thank you so much for listening to us talk about this. Next week, it's going to be a far more serious film, yet still pretty wacky from my understanding. I saw the sequel, which is a sequel in title only, but I read up on the first one, and we're going to be doing Evil Dead Trap, which is actually a crime drama with supernatural elements in it. And it's got some brutal kills and such. It's kind of more of extreme Asian cinema. So definitely going to be in a different tone, I think, than this one. But I'm very fascinated by it because the Evil Dead Trap 2 that I saw was very interesting when I got a chance to review it. And so, we're doing Evil Dead Trap, which again will have nothing to do with Evil Dead, but it's Deaduary, Evil Deaduary. So there you go.
Let me just imagine this. Okay, it's Evil Dead Trap. Ash Williams encounters Tobin Bell's character from Saw. He wants to play a game.
Yeah, and then he's like, I don't play games, and just cuts him in half with the chainsaw.
Mr. Williams, you said you wanted some sugar. Well, you have to fight your way out of 6,000 pounds of sugar.
Fine, give me some sugar, baby. Groovy. And he starts but I want to see that. But yes, Evil Dead Trap is next week, so it's Evil Deaduary. Hope you're going to enjoy some of these films I picked out. And yeah, next week too, we will be on Monday night. So if you by chance drift on YouTube at the time we're recording the live version of this, we are actually going to be on Monday night, same time, 9:30 live show. But it'll be Monday night because there's some people who want to be romantical and things. So, but
Mark, you can't give away all of our secrets live on the air.
I'm sorry.
No.
Well, I mean, it could be me. I could be romantical. Maybe.
Well, no, I'm just saying you're spoiling my big surprise for you in front of everybody.
Oh. Okay, should I?
Got weird, didn't it?
You're gonna buy me dinner first, at least. And with that, it's Ian's license to shill. The floor is yours.
I'm Ian Hot Pants Simmons. I run Kicking the Seat, which you can find at kickseat.com, and also on YouTube at Kicking the Seat. You wouldn't know it, but I post a lot of content there. It's been over a week, but mostly because I'm backed up in terms of content. So look for that to be unleashed in the coming days. There's a lot of stuff going on and going up very soon. And also here on Tuesdays, except for next week, which I'll be here on Monday with Mark.
Would you say that you've been incontinent?
No, I wouldn't say that, Mark. Oh my God. Anyway,
folks, that's our show. We thank you so much to our 2 live viewers. We hope you enjoyed watching it live. Catch us on Anchor FM. The recorded version is slightly different, so you'll want to catch it out on our podcast and subscribe and all that fun stuff as well. Thank you so much, and we hope to see you next week. And until next time, we'll just say a good night, everyone.
Good night.